Hey everyone, this is Smart Bastard, and apologies for it taking a little bit for this video to come out. The most important thing I've been up to, apart from overtime at work and a few weddings, is that I've come up with a new name for the project, which I'm now calling Bladewarden, and you're currently looking at the new logo I've made. It's actually harder than I'd like to make new logos, and harder than I'd like to actually do design work. I think I'm reasonable at doing programming now, but for the life of me, coming up with concept art is just so hard. I don't know why. I can draw things, but trying to draw things from scratch, I've just never been very good with it. So there's this new thing called AI that seems to be about, and I thought I'd give it a go. Specifically with DALL-E 2, I was able to create some concept art for the new logo, and I got a bit of mixed results. I mean, these four we're looking at now. Bladewarden has to be my absolute favourite. I have no idea why it struggles so much with words, but, you know, fair play, considering it is literally instant, they don't look too bad. Especially when I was able to give it, like, no description at all. I brought up some really nice designs, and this was more what I was aiming for, rather than colours. I don't know, I just feel like the game, because it is quite simple, might be best with a black and white logo. So I tried to build on this, with mixed results. Again, it's really strange, it just does not like writing very much, at all. And none of these particularly caught my attention. Now, this lot on the other hand, I do like the idea of the sword, hence why I requested it in this specific one. And yeah, there's one here you might recognise. But then I carried on, because I wasn't entirely happy. And again, some really stonking good logos. It's like 90% of being a good logo. It's obviously the font it never works with, and there's so many inaccuracies in the designs. But, you know, as far as concept art goes, I couldn't really ask for any better. So, through the 20 logos I've actually looked at, yeah, I think there was one in particular, this one with the sword in the background and the square, that I did like. I mean, yes, it is completely off-center, I don't know why. It is also horribly inaccurate to both the sword or dagger and the name. How does it think that is anything to do with Bladewarden? I don't know. And the sword obviously clips off the frame, and there's a bunch of weird errors where it's not very symmetrical, and there's a bunch of weird errors and thickness issues. But I like the start. I especially like the black and white theme, and I like the way they've done the name, or it's done the name. And obviously the biggest problem with these is the resolution. They are simply too small to use as a logo, and it's a JPEG as well, so that background can't stay. I can't use a logo like this at all, so I have to remake it, and I have to iterate on it repeatedly. So there was a lot of concept art that went through quite a few different iterations of it. The thing that mostly stayed the same was really the sword. Obviously there are issues with it, but I do quite like it. So I was able to then begin actually building on it, like building a completely fresh image. So I booted up GIMP, and I borrowed a graphics tablet and decided to actually use one of the concept art images, which was based off that AI image, to then trace over it. I mean, one of the obvious things I've done differently is I've added a hex instead of a square, and as someone actually trying to create this as a proper logo, I've removed the background, and I've also needed to draw the entire layers, all the layers of everything, so properly have the sword. Like in a JPEG, it's all flat, there's no layers. So I've had to begin again, effectively, building up the various different layers, piece by piece, beginning with the hex, and then moving on to the sword. And it's probably obvious from the screen capture, but I am not used to drawing so much with a graphics tablet, so I had to redo a lot of what I was doing a lot of the time. one of the important things I did do was also duplicate the central part of the sword to make it all symmetrical, which was a fairly easy win, to be honest, and then redraw the entire thing. Based somewhat on the original, but it removes all of the errors it had and makes it a proper sword that I can use in other things if necessary, and yeah, basically rebuild the logo using the original somewhat as concept art, and then I used the Google font to help populate the logo wording itself, because again, font licensing and all sorts. So there's a lot that's gone into it, and I'm actually really quite happy with it. So yeah, I then decided to move on, and long story short, I've been having a lot of issues with my UI library that I was using called Uppbeat. It's good for what it is, but I was running into the limitations with it, especially when it came to scrolling containers. It's just built in a strange way to integrate into the rest of the game. So whilst I'm redesigning the logo, it made a lot of sense to rebuild the game using a different library. In the end, I chose Myra, which still has its quirks and is still a work in progress, but it's more complete than Uppbeat as far as I can tell. And as part of that, I also decided I would rebuild the main menu and all the other UI. So I went through the same process again. I decided to use AI to create the concept art for some cool main menus, and this was really bad actually. Like, it's way worse than the logo designs were. Although weirdly slightly more accurate when it comes to the names. There were some really cool ones as well. I especially like the ones with the scenery, the large, broad landscapes. I think that is a really nice touch. But these really aren't UIs, and anytime it tries to draw UIs is utterly terrible and completely unhelpful. So this isn't really what I was going for. And in the end, I just decided that it would make more sense to draw my own using the logo and going for a really simple style. Basically, the logo does a lot of the heavy lifting. And you know what? I was quite happy with this. So it took a long time to actually implement this in between work and all my other commitments. But I have now rebuilt the entire repo to use Myra instead of Uppbeat. And instead of the clunky interface, which looked a bit too cartoony, to be honest, I've replaced it now with something that looks incredibly like the initial concept art, and replaced all the menus. So we've got a settings menu, we've got the new game screen menu, we've got the main game UI, we've got the status bar in the top right hand corner, we've got an end turn button in the bottom right hand corner. When you click on a hex, it will also bring up the hex details panel in the bottom left hand corner and the unit detail panel where appropriate. And finally, if you click on the unit panel and you open the window, it will show the unit actions window. And that's as far as I got with all the UI. Oh, and the pause menu. And that's as far as I got with all the UI in the previous version. So I am now completely up to date with the new user interface. And I think it does look good. I mean, obviously it's not polished. I would like some of the buttons to have rounded corners, and I would like them to use much better icons. But I think it's actually quite a big improvement from the old one. I'm happier with it now, and it feels more themed towards what we're going for, even though it is dead simple. And simple is the best option though at this stage, because the worst thing in the world is creating something incredibly polished and then having to tear it all out because you decided to add a new feature. This is the taking it the other way around, and we're going for minimum viable product and delivering something that is simple and easy to change at this stage. Later on, we can then go and improve everything, but there's only so much. Like, this was already way too much work just for a design change, to be honest, but it actually hasn't added any functionality to the game, but it's taken weeks and doesn't actually improve things for the player in some ways in terms of functions. So I don't like UI work, I'll be honest. It takes forever. It isn't very rewarding. It's actually way slower than doing the same sort of thing with a website and CSS, and is at times mildly infuriating. But it is now done for now, and I can get on in the future hopefully by the next episode, whenever that may come out, of the devlog, to actually be developing new features and using the UI in a more productive manner. But for now, it does everything it used to, and it looks better doing it. And I'm finally able to say that this game is called Bladewarden. It actually has a name. You know, I'm quite happy with the name, and I'm very much looking forward to building on it and seeing where we can go with, you know, with the game itself. Just don't expect it anytime soon, please. There is no time frame for this work. But thanks, guys, and I hope you have a good one. See ya.